What is up, Wizards fans? Welcome into another Believe in Wizards podcast. I'm Matt Modderno. He's Jahadi White. Daniel Gafford is now a Dallas Maverick. Richaun Holmes is a Wizard. And somebody somewhere eventually at some point in time, first-round pick is also now with the Wizards. We'll see what that turns into. I don't know, Jahadi, just before we get too far into this, what were your initial thoughts on the deal?
I was surprised about the deal. I didn't think – I know everybody's on a chopping block, right,
Yep.
at this point. But I was surprised about the deal as far as Gafford being the first one. I didn't think he would be the first one that'd be out of here.
Or the only one.
Yeah, the only one. And not only that, it's such a vital part of our team right now.
Yeah.
That it's tough to see an anchor like Gafford go, right? Because, yes, we did get Marvin Bagley in, which is a good backup, and he's been efficient in putting up numbers and offensive rebounds so far. But in my opinion, Marvin Bagley is not a Gafford. So to be able to get rid of such an anchor, somebody who can protect the rim, somebody you can throw lobs to, somebody who's had a record in shot blocking, a record in shot blocking for the Wizards, for the franchise.
Yep.
That's a tough guy to let go, and that's going to be one that the Wizards fans are going to kind of say, okay, let's see where we're going here. Now, but it also says if Gafford's the first one to go, then they're really wiping the slate clean and starting from scratch and say, hey, we're going to just build from scratch. And so it sounds like if they could, they would have gotten rid of more players, and they would have tried to get more picks.
We're doing this in real time here, folks, too. The trade deadline just ended. Stuff comes through the wire late, so throw it in the chat if you see something that comes up, after 3 o'clock here, because we won't see it too easily ourselves. So just let us know if you see something. We'll try to hit chat questions and things as we get going. As always, we're brought to you by Stateside Vodka and their Surfside hard iced teas, hard lemonades, hard half and halves, hard lemonades. I'm going to have a hard lemonade here as soon as we get off the pod, just because, I don't know, it's been a long day.
May need one.
Yeah, Gafford may need one too. We could hook him up. I don't know. Maybe he's happy. That'll be interesting to hear about.
It's not a bad grab for Dallas.
Yeah, he'll look good next to Luka and Kyrie.
Yeah, and they need a solid center there too. So I don't think that's a bad look for Dallas at all.
I agree. He'll be a good kind of mentor, I think, to someone like Derek Lively. Who just isn't ready for like the spotlight by himself in year one. So I think that's really a great fit. Also brought to you by BetOnline. It's your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for everything. I don't know. You could probably have bet on the trade deadline if you wanted to do that. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to place all your wagers, including your favorite betting and your favorite casino and card games. And it's available from your mobile device or a website, computer, whatever you want to use to get to it. Use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for 50% off on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. So again, just to recap, if you're joining us here after a couple minutes, Wizards are basically giving up Daniel Gafford for Richaun Holmes and what will probably turn into a late 20s first-round pick in 2024. Maybe let's just start with Richaun Holmes. I think there were a fair amount of who tweets, question mark, when that was announced. It's really kind of salary matching, I think, at this point. He wasn't getting much run in Dallas. He was averaging 3.5-ish points, 3.5 rebounds, not a ton of minutes. That's a team that, like you said, needed a big. So the fact that he wasn't really playing there probably says a lot about, the state of Richaun Holmes and his game right now. Any thoughts on Richaun Holmes, Jahadi? I don't know a ton about Richaun Holmes, so I don't know if you're super familiar with his work either.
I haven't watched him lately with Dallas. I don't think he played a lot with Dallas. I do remember him with Sacramento.
Yep, same.
He's a powerful guy, athletic, can jump over the rim, big guy. Dunks a lot, a rim protector. He started off really making an impact in Sacramento, but he kind of slowly, his stats dwindled down. Not a young guy, but what I'm more concerned about is how many years does Richaun Holmes have left on his contract? Because he's pretty much I don't know the amount of impact he can offer the Wizards now.
Sure.
So I'm trying to now think, okay, what's the logic here? And what are they really trying to do? Are they trying to clear out some money after 1 year and free something up, or how does it go?
So he has a player option for next season. So he could technically walk in the offseason. I don't think anyone else is going to give Richaun Holmes more than $13 million next year. So I would very much imagine that we see him as a Washington Wizard for at least next season. Maybe you could trade him at that point, or I don't know, even buy him out halfway through next year if he's not doing anything for you. As a 35-year-old, I would like to say that 30 is not super old, but it does seem like Richaun Holmes is on the downswing of his career. He had a couple, as you mentioned, this is where I remember him too, is he had that like good, like 3-ish year run in Sacramento, and just seemed like nobody really wanted to give him a chance after that. They seemed very happy to like replace him with Alex Len, who Wizards fans remember is not really doing a whole lot of stuff here either. So I guess one case you could maybe make is they're getting off Gafford's money like a little earlier. So I don't really personally get that. It'd be 1 year earlier. You're getting to cap space. But by 25, 26, they're going to want to start to be getting better. So they're not going to use that extra cap space to take on, bad contracts, essentially. Like you're not freeing it up well enough in advance to really do much with that additional flexibility you get from it. All that allows you to do is maybe sign another free agent or whatever. So to me, this kind of just says they weren't really all that in on Gafford. Like this isn't a lot, like Holmes is what he is. He's just a backup big for you. And you're basically trading for a 20, like the 27th pick, and what everybody is kind of collectively saying is one of the weaker drafts in recent memory. I think this is going to be one of those drafts where the guys taken 25 to 45 are probably about the same tier or caliber of player. So in a year where, you could easily go get another second round pick, like if that's really all you're trying to do, I think you probably could have bought into, the early second round and then used a little bit of maneuvering here to get yourself into a late first or the 30th pick. Like, I don't know. I would have liked a little bit more for Gafford. Anyone who listened to this show early in the season were like, oh, you guys were so hard on him. But it's because we liked him and thought he could do more. And now that he's doing more, the Wizards have decided to move on. So I don't know. It's a little bit of a head scratcher to me personally.
Me too. Especially how hard it is to find decent.
Yep.
And Gafford to me is above decent center
I agree.
in this league, right? That Gafford is an impactful center.
Yep.
There's many a nights he walked away with 10 and 15, right? And he can actually bring more of that. Sure. Gafford is more on an upswing to me as a player. There's no doubt about it.
I think so too.
I don't think twice about that. Yeah. So Dallas is really getting the gym. Now I'm trying to figure out what's the game plan. Mm-hmm. What's the game plan with the Wizards? Are they now saying, okay, we want to really, really boost 1 through 4? If we boost 1 through 4, we can just have a guy out there rebounding and just a little impact, right? Because a lot of teams, they do boost 1 through 4, and their 5 is really not that impactful. He just needs to be a big body out there.
Yeah.
Is that the way they're going? Or do they see a big future with Bagley? Or they're just trying, like I said, they're trying to just wipe the slate clean and say, hey, let's just rebuild with young players and hopefully don't turn into a Detroit.
I assume it's that, but then why would Gafford be the only one you move? And maybe, there just weren't deals there for these other guys, but it just seems like if you're not going to go all in, Gafford is a weird one to trade to me. If you were going to just clean house, like you're saying, like I'd be like, all right, cool, I get it. Just get everybody out, get a ton of picks, and let's just start this bad boy from literally ground zero at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So if I can't move a lot of people, why would I shake up some like the good foundation of the team, right? Gafford is a good foundation guy. Deni is a good foundation guy. Like those aren't the two that I would consider moving first, right? If I can't really still move anything, because I still got to have an impact.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Unless they really trust Bagley. They put a lot of trust in Bagley like that.
I think it's got to be a little bit of both. Like they weren't that sold on Gafford, and they must like Bagley to at least be able to replicate what Gafford gave you. It's just kind of weird to me. Like you've got a 25-year-old in Gafford who's kind of been unleashed this year. You know, he's 11 points, 8 rebounds, 1 steal, 2.5 blocks, 70% from the field. This is the player we've been asking for from Gafford. He's still not great. Like there's some holes there. I'm not saying he's Wilt Chamberlain. Somebody's gonna be like, oh, Gafford wasn't that good. Like, calm down. But Bagley's been good, but he's also been feasting against second units. And we talked about this last pod, and you made the point that I thought was great is this is probably the best like 2-man center rotation the Wizards have had in I don't know how many years, like a long time, I feel like. So Gafford may not have been an elite starting center, but the fact that you didn't have a ton of drop off from him to Gafford was a chance for you to maybe, potentially have some positional advantage. Now that you move Bagley up in the pecking order there, going Bagley to Richaun Holmes, that's a pretty that's a bigger drop off to me. Yeah,
that's a significant drop.
Yep.
And no matter where you're trying to go or what's the game plan or what's the final game plan, at least you had one puzzle piece.
Right.
You had both of your centers there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You had a good puzzle piece. All right. Now we don't have to touch that.
Yep.
Now let's really work what we're trying to do, because the puzzle piece we have is rare.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very easy to get, right?
Yep.
And it's better than majority of this of the league.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And
as a 2-man group, the
2-man group is better than majority of the league.
It's at least not the bottom. It's one of the few positions we're not at the bottom at.
Right. So to me, when I saw that, I was like, okay, I may like the direction we're going in, because that's actually a big move, I thought.
Yeah.
Especially after I saw how things formulated, how things worked out through per game. Say, okay, they're working good together. They feed well off each other's competitiveness, right?
Okay.
So it's, to me, just to find out that Gafford was traded today, I don't know. I see the benefit going toward the other team personally first, but I know there's a bigger game plan with the Wizards and what they're trying to do. I haven't figured it out yet, but I definitely know it is one.
If this was like a 2026 first-round pick, and for situations like this, I think late first-round picks are always more valuable in out years, because teams can convince themselves that, well, that looks like a pretty good draft for right now. And usually when you get closer, you're like, oh, well, maybe it wasn't as great as we all thought it would be. So when you get to like roll the timetable out, there's a longer amount of time that pick holds value for other people, that it can be attached in other trades or whatever the case may be. A 2024 late first-round pick, when you've got almost all the people who do this full time shitting on this draft, it's a less valuable first round pick than in most years. In a year after they traded down from the 35th pick, that in a good draft where there was reasonable depth. So it's just, I don't know what this front office will do. I've heard a couple of people say, no, this is a win because they could just add another second round pick and they could jump up into the lottery or something. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, teams aren't going to do that. That's not realistic to me personally.
And picks, I don't know. People don't consider picks are always a roll of dice.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's always the ones that, hey, maybe they come out and be a blossom and be an NBA star. Yeah. Right. That first 1 through 10. Sometimes you might be the guy you never know. And so many that fall short of being that.
Yep.
So I don't know if we're only banking on picks.
Yeah, I'm with you. And that's why I was saying, like, the later it is, the longer it maintains some value as this theoretical, maybe it could be attached to another deal kind of thing. You could throw it into another trade down the road when you're trying to be good or competitive. But I've had a couple of people say, other teams find players better than Daniel Gafford with picks later than 26 all the time. You just have to be good at drafting. Well, I mean, this front office has made one good draft pick so far in their time in Washington. The jury is still out on another one who they didn't even think of enough of to bring over in a year, or they could have used another big. So I haven't seen enough track record here that I'm definitively in these guys are, drafting Wizards. Like, I think they'll be good. Drafting Wizards part of the punt, but we'll see like what the the actual long-term impacts of this trade are, because Jahadi, I think this is one of those ones where we're going to be hearing people bitch about it 5 years down the road, because I think Gafford is going to look better next to Kyrie and Luka and these guys that have gravity. So he's going to look better than he looked there, I think. And if they don't hit on this pick, we're going to hear, oh my gosh, the Wizards traded Daniel Gafford, who's now only, maybe the 20th best center in the league is what he looks like, as opposed to the 27th or something. And all they got back was Steve Sinan, Usif Sinan's brother from the Ukrainian league. It just, if they don't do something with that pick, I think this is one of those ones where it's just going to look worse down the road for sure.
Yeah, true. It's just tough, man, because I don't know if we can put so much value in pick. To me, if I'm a GM and I'm trading, I'm going off of what's already been displayed and what's already been proven.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because now it's more of a guarantee.
Yep.
It's not so much of a roll of dice. So to me, instead of trying to trade players for picks with every team, I need players.
Yep.
And it seems like we're chasing, our biggest thing right now we want is just chasing after picks.
Mm-hmm. And not doing a particularly good job of it either, by the way.
Yeah, I think there's a game plan there.
Yeah.
But it seems like a game plan that just is built off picks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how great that can be all the time. And my thing is, when I see that, I see a Detroit.
Yeah.
Because Detroit pretty much is a young team and based it off all picks. What happens is you get a lot of the same type of players playing the same type of ball.
Right.
And before you know it, you got one style of player, and they can't really play together. They can't be effective and be a winning team together that way.
That's the other thing too, is I think if you want to put people like Koulibaly in the best position to succeed, Deni in the best position to succeed, Kispert in the best position to succeed as these young guys, you have to have like a certain amount of competent guys around them. And I think Bagley is competent enough to fill in, but we've also seen like a 6-game sample size of him being this better player. Like, we're a month removed from him being like largely unplayable for Detroit, or just a low level rotation guy. So us expecting him to stay this guy is still a little bit of a crapshoot to me. So let's say he falls off and now you've got just him and Richaun Holmes, and people are just, having their way with our center rotation. Like, it's going to make life tougher for those other guys. And I don't think you get to evaluate them in the best context or help them develop into the best versions of themselves. That's my take on that, at least.
Yeah. Then again, you guys think about how long the process is supposed to take.
Sure.
We may be, as Wizards fans, we may have another year like we had this year, just because.
At least. Yeah.
Because like they said, you're gonna have to work. You're gonna have to be patient with us a little bit, because we're setting ourselves to make the right move so we can be a very good contending team in the future. That's maybe not that maybe not mean tomorrow.
It's true.
So the thing is, how much are the Wizards fan willing to sacrifice, during this process? Because the way it looks, it's still going to be a slow walk here.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, this is a 3-year thing at a minimum.
Yeah.
Honestly, very few teams pull it off more quickly than that. At least, before they're like relatively solid again. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't make a jump next year or whatever if they do some things well. But Brandon 1906 said in the chat, I think this trade was to appease Ted Leonsis, delivering the mandate that he wanted at first. There was some reporting that Ted was kind of pushing the front office to accumulate draft assets in whatever way, shape, or form that they could. So, hey, the guy signed your checks. At some point, if he says, get me a first-round pick, and Daniel Gafford is the only guy that can get you a first-round pick, you do what you got to do, I think, to kind of keep the boss happy to some extent. Hopefully, that's not what's driving the move solely, but
isn't that what Ted got the super friends for?
Right, exactly. Let them do their thing. Stay
Right.
out of
I
it.
mean, at the end of the day, why do you go get such a great team?
Yep.
Then to make a demand to say, hey, this is the way we want to do it.
Bingo.
I don't know. No, I don't think we want to Jerry Jones this one.
I am wholeheartedly with you. Just these guys should know more about basketball than the guy who's been a successful hockey owner, successful WNBA owner, successful NBA 2K owner, not a successful NBA owner. So let them do their thing and let them cook. And hopefully this is not a move that they were against and got kind of forced into. But, you did hear that reporting. So it's definitely worth throwing out there, I think. Folks, if you're listening to this live on YouTube, do us a little favor, hit that like button. Actually, if you're listening to it not live, still hit that little like button for us. Subscribe. We appreciate that. And we'll hit the chat here as much as we can later in the show. Just want to hit through a couple more things before we get going. There's a really interesting tweet by Brad Townsend of the Dallas Morning News that I just wanted to throw out there. He said, friendly reminder, when teams agree to terms of a trade, there remains a process in which both teams get on a conference call with the NBA and for the league office to approve. When a third team gets involved, which appears to be the case in the Gafford deal, it takes longer. And on trade deadline day, when deals are literally being agreed to around the league every few minutes, those conference calls with the league can back up considerably. It's like a train that keeps adding cars. So I think the point of that is, one, deal's not totally done. People have to go through physicals and all kinds of stuff here. There could be one of these teams that says, no, that's not what I agreed to. Wizards fans all remember the whole, Brooks versus Brooks fiasco a couple years ago under Ernie Grunfeld, where they weren't actually talking about the right guy, and it was Dylan Brooks versus Marshawn Brooks. So, stuff always happens that this stuff doesn't always pan out. It could look differently. What we get back, I don't know. It just, until the ink is actually signed and the deal's made official, we'll see. Until I see a press release, we'll see. By the time everyone's listening to this, it could have been formally happened. People report on deals being done, Shams, The Athletic, ESPN, whoever. But it's not always the case until it actually happens. Jahadi, what's that player physical like after a trade? Is it the same thing you go through with every team at the beginning of a year?
Yeah, it is. It's that same physical you go through when you first get drafted.
Mm-hmm.
When you first get drafted, it's test out everything.
Sure.
Right? Test out everything. You go through, it's probably a 2-day process, but it's also sometime during while you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a game that night, you got to be there, or tomorrow, but then you got to go see this doctor, go see that during the daytime.
Yeah.
It's not crazy,
mm-hmm.
But it's a good physical. It's sure. NBA style physical where they're gonna know everything. So I mean, so as a player, you're more concerned about, especially if you want to be here. And at the end of the day, you want to stay in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
As a player, you kind of start thinking about every injury you had.
Yep.
Let me go through all the injuries I had, and hopefully, they'll be okay with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not worried about it from the Daniel Gafford passing a physical perspective, but there could be some stuff here why Richaun Holmes doesn't actually play for Dallas. Maybe he's a little beat up. 30, he's not that old for a guy to taper off. So maybe that's been the result of injury. So just something to throw out there that we'll see what that looks like the rest of the way. I want to say in 2003-ish, right? Jahadi, you were traded from the Wizards to the Suns. I guess just there is a human element to this. What's that like? What's the feeling like when you get that call? Just kind of walk us through that process for you.
It depends on the player.
Okay.
It depends if you're the type of player that's trying to demand a trade,
mm-hmm.
or you get caught off guard. The one you don't want is the one where you're caught off guard. You didn't know, right. Not knowing. I've seen players get caught off guard a lot of times, and it's just devastating.
Yep.
And you see those players break down. Some players break down.
Sure.
Some players are just startled because, and sometimes it's the top player it's always the top player pretty much don't know they're going to get traded.
Okay.
It's crazy. the middle tier players, they know beforehand.
Interesting.
That top player that they really, really have to hide the trade from because it can be very impactful and that he can affect it some way.
They've got the pull to blow it up if they want to.
Yeah, they got the pull to blow it up. So, right. Which means it hits harder with the top player. So the top player, they might be flying somewhere and on a plane. While you flying, they tell you somebody go in your whistle, you just got traded. Right before a game, you warming up, you just got traded. You can't play this game.
Yeah, go.
And now they're sitting. Now they can't sit on the bench.
Yeah,
so they're
in the locker room,
in the stands. They're actually sitting in the stands right by the bench, just looking dazed and confused. You know, so I've seen it all. But personally for me, it was one to where I demanded it at the time. So I was pretty much waiting it out. So in that case, in my mind, it was a little bit long overdue. I kept calling like my agent, like, "Hey, what's going on?
Is this done yet?" Yeah,
it's done. With it. Who are we going to? What's happening? So, and the grass is not always greener in that situation either.
Sure.
So that's the other thing. Like players got to realize, just because you demand a trade doesn't mean that it's going to be a better place, you know, or a better situation. Like, because you don't really understand how great one organization is till you leave and go to the next one that you think is better.
Right.
And it's not.
It seems like this is a pretty player-friendly place for Wizards players right now. You know, they're not held like super accountable, which is not always the best for you, but it's not like they're working everybody way too hard here.
It's a difference, right? But it's a difference between the team, the coaches, and the organization.
Okay.
Right? You want to go to a solid organization, you know, where from top to bottom it's good. Some of them don't mean you're going to win just because it's a good organization.
Right.
But then you can go somewhere where you can just feel it. There's no the GMs and there's no connection to the players.
Yeah.
Kind of feel third tier.
Sure.
The basketball, like the practice gym is small. No amenities. It was situations like that from the outside looked like it's a great situation.
Sure.
And you get there and you're like, whoa. Yeah. I just left a 5-star. I just took myself to a 3-star on purpose.
Right. I'm at the Motel 6 now. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And you mentioned this a second ago, but there's a real world example of this today. Patrick Beverley, I think, went on his own podcast and said, like, Daryl Morey told him earlier this week he would not be traded at the deadline. And sure enough, he got traded today. So that kind of stuff happens.
They can't tell you.
You know.
So, look, Patrick Beverley has a podcast that's big.
Yep.
You can't tell that man to get traded.
Yeah,
he's media too now.
Yeah, it'd be leaked out. Yeah.
He has his own pipeline to media, to the fans.
Yeah, he could get that out.
Right? So that the team doesn't control. Right? Back then, the team controlled all the information.
Right.
So they can put any information out you want to. Well, now Patrick Beverley can get in front of the bullet. That's different.
Yeah. I've seen a couple comments in the chat here, and I'm not saying anybody's doing this intentionally, but like there's been a couple like calm downs. It was just Gafford. I'm gonna speak for you, Jahadi. Like I'm not like broken up about this move. It's not like a franchise ruiner for me. I'm not out on the new front office. It was a surprise to me, just given how it fits in the context of all the other moves or not moves they made this trade deadline. That was a surprise. This move by itself, you know, whatever. Hopefully they do something good with the pick. I liked Gafford. I didn't really, love the idea of getting rid of him if you're not going to totally sweep things. But at the end of the day, like I'm not shedding a ton of tears over this or grabbing my pitchfork to head down to Capital One and riot around the arena. It's a little head scratching by itself. Hopefully it's the first domino in a bunch of dominoes that they can pull off maybe in the offseason now. And we'll look back on this fondly and think, wow, remember when we kind of didn't love that move? Actually, it worked out great. I hope that's the case.
It's always tough to see a player that you like and start to blossom and grow leave. Because remember, we wasn't the lightest on Gafford. We were tough on him, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And what we saw was it was after he twisted that ankle and that he was out for a little bit.
Right.
I don't know what was the epiphany there.
Yeah.
But after that, he slowly started blossoming.
And
he started stacking games after game. Started being a much better player. Started seeming like he was 10 times more focused.
Yep.
And the fans noticed it too. Right? The fans noticed it too. And he became one of the fan favorites.
I agree.
You could trust him.
Yep.
I can trust Gafford most nights now.
Yeah.
Right? And it's tough.
He was solid.
It was solid. It's tough. You like the plan. You like the guys you can trust.
Yeah.
I can trust Gafford. I can trust Kuzma mostly. I can trust. I can guarantee. I can always trust Deni.
Yep, exactly.
I can
the
trust
most solidly consistent guy on the team.
I can trust Tyus.
Yeah.
Right. So when those guys move, but see the difference is this: we saw Gafford grow. Tyus kind of came here and started pow.
Yeah.
Kuzma always been the top guy in the NBA, right? So we saw Gafford grow into somebody that we can like. Hey, now he's solid. Yeah, he's solid. And then soon you see him grow, and you know it was much more there. You just don't get to grow with him anymore.
I think it's sometimes there's a difference between a guy got better versus a guy's stats got better because he got more role. Like Tyus Jones' numbers are better because he got more opportunity to be involved in the offense here. Kuzma's numbers are better because he got more opportunities to be involved in the offense here. I don't know. We've seen like meaningful changes in their game in the time they've been here. Kuzma maybe more so because Tyus has only been here. But to your point, like Gafford, we've seen him as a young player get better and make some moves and do the things we were hoping from him at the beginning of the year. And, some people do the, you guys are tough on him thing. But it's, for me at least, if I'm tough on a player, especially a young player, it's because I think they have upside. And if it's, hey, if he does these things, it unlocks like the next level of player that I think they can be. And we saw that with Gafford. We've seen that with Deni. I'm apparently the world's biggest Deni hater, but the comments have always been, if he works on the left hand, if he has a perimeter shot, it unlocks all these things he can do offensively. And if he's got offense enough to stay on the floor, then you get the benefit of his defense and his rebounding. If you don't, you don't. So he goes from an 8th man to a 4th man or a 5th man or whatever the ceiling is for him. But if he doesn't do those things, then you don't unlock that player. But it's the guys we aren't talking about at all are really the ones where we're just not that invested. If we're spending the time to talk about how this guy could grow or blossom into a better player and what he needs to do, it's because there's something there to do it. I feel bad saying this, but we don't talk a lot about Johnny Davis on this show because there's not much to talk about right now. Doesn't mean that he can't still turn it around, but like I got that tweet the other day, like, why do you say something about Deni's game, but you're not nearly as hard on Johnny Davis? It's like, because the guy can barely play in the G League a lot of nights. Like he's been actually better the last week or so, but there's piling on to a guy that might be playing in Bangladesh in a year versus a guy that, could make double his salary if he does certain things right. So just That's where I'm coming from for folks, at least. All right, Jahadi. So a couple guys that didn't get moved are maybe more surprising even than the Gafford trade. Tyus Jones did not get moved. Landry Shamet did not get moved, at least as we know of right now. DeLon Wright did not get moved. The Tyus one, we talked about it last time. Maybe that's a move. They try to bring him back on a cheap deal. And then next year, he's got more trade value once he's under contract. But the DeLon one and the Landry Shamet ones are honestly more surprising to me. Like, DeLon's a veteran guy that could go help one of these other teams. I would not be shocked if he's bought out. There's a world where Landry Shamet gets bought out. I don't know. Do you see either of these guys on the roster for the rest of the season?
I was expecting, I feel like DeLon and Landry definitely going to get bought out. Yeah. I was expecting probably that first big trade to be for Tyus.
Yeah,
Not
sure.
because I dislike Tyus. I like what he brought this year.
Sure.
It just seemed that Tyus value really makes it an easy deal to work to get some value back, or some good picks like we've been doing back.
Yep.
But so I thought Tyus would be guaranteed the first guy to go. I never even considered Deni right out the gate. I mean, I never considered Gafford right out the gate.
Yeah.
So to me, it was a big surprise that they're not working Tyus for the deadline. I don't know if they are, but it's not anything in the in the buzz
seen it yet.
right now.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting. That's probably the move with Tyus. You try to resign him and keep him, and then you can let him be your starting center for the rebuild, and he's solid enough and a good enough dude. Got the Duke DNA and probably a pretty good guy in the locker room. Maybe that's good enough on a cheap, team-friendly deal, and great. But it's these other two guys that they're probably not going to be back here next year. They don't really help you a ton, move the needle. Like, I've always really liked DeLon Wright, but I think the value he could provide to a contender at this point is greater than he's going to provide for the Wizards. And if we're going to suck at this point, I'd rather see any DeLon Wright minutes go to, I don't know, Johnny Davis or one of these other dudes, or Jared Butler off the G League team, because maybe there's a chance that they're actually here next season.
I think we should not get another existing guard that's already out there. Right. To me, that'd be good if you can go get another younger guard.
So I got a name here for you. Former number 7 pick overall in the 2020 draft, Killian Hayes, was just released by the Detroit Pistons today.
Yeah, I saw that.
He's been largely terrible offensively in the NBA, but a pretty good defender, young enough still, a good athlete. Would you take a shot on him if you end up with a roster spot?
I would as a backup for Tyus. Yeah. Sure. And now we have youth on our side, and we have some good coaches that can really work with him. Right. Killian Hayes. We have some good coaches who
put him with Vanderpool.
Put him in Vanderpool hands and say, all right, we can build with you. Free up some money with DeLon, free up some money with Landry Shamet, and I think that'd be a great move.
He is also in his first 4 years in the NBA, which I think makes him still technically eligible to be on a 2-way contract for the rest of this year. So if you've got a guy like Jules Bernard that's probably not a part of your long-term future, or Eugene Amarui, who's not a part of your long-term future, most likely, I don't know, is his value so down in the league? Could you maybe get him on a 2-way contract even? And then you don't have to free up a roster spot to get him. Otherwise, you're relying on one of these guys to get bought out to make room for him. If you're going to buy a guy out anyway, add a young guy to fill the spot. Or if you can't, find some way to get him on a contract, I think is all I'm saying.
I don't know. I don't think 2 ways are always good for every player.
Okay.
For him, we're trying to get him confidence. Okay. And we're trying to get him some acclamation.
Sure.
He needs to be in the game. He needs to be in the fire. And we have coaches who can work with him and just have him as a backup. He's still a great player. He's still a good player. He's been off offensively. Still a great defense. We need some solid defense, especially from that position. Yeah. We're not really getting it at all.
That's true.
And just make him a backup and just say, all right, we're going to roll with you right now. I mean, it's a process anyway at this point.
I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where, like, odds are, sample size wise, he's probably not going to ever live up to that 7th overall pick standing, but could you still turn him into a productive rotation player? Just for example, like the guy who comes to mind is Chris Dunn. Everybody wrote off Chris Dunn. He ended up with the Wizards on their G League team. He looked really good. They chose not to pick him up. He went to Utah, and the guy has totally revitalized his career as a defensive-minded guard who's just really solid, and now he's improved offensively for sure, but like it's...
You need the right system.
Yeah, sometimes that's all it is a fresh start. And that, like, being in Detroit seems like such a shit show that it might actually be worse than being in Washington for a lot of these guys. So it's worked for Bagley. Like, I don't know, maybe we can jumpstart his career a little bit.
Yeah. When you're on a team like Detroit, no matter how much you want to push forward, you got so many elements you're fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Bad team, all your teammates down. The city is on you. Your laughing stock of the entire NBA.
Yeah.
Now everybody's trying to get theirs. Sometimes with players, a change of environment a lot of times is good, but also it's all about finding the right system for you.
Mm-hmm.
And with the NBA, it's more about luck or the draw than anything.
Sure. I mentioned one guy in Chris Dunn that is one of the few guys that turn it from bust into respectable player with hard work, but maybe a Dennis Smith Jr. Like there are other guys, and I'd just rather see us give those minutes to someone that at least theoretically could turn into something, rather than give it to a bunch of old guys who I know what they are, and they're probably trending down at this point in their career. That's all I'm saying. This is going to get turned into like, well, Matt said like the Wizards that Killian Hayes is a great player and they need to get him. Like, odds are he's probably not going to be that good for you, but like, why not give it a shot and find out? It's not like, oh no, he's going to hold us back from 2 extra wins or some shit. Like there's no disadvantage to giving as many young guys opportunities as possible.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree.
We'll see how that actually works itself out, but that would definitely be interesting. So I don't know. I saw one comment in the chat I thought was interesting is why would you want to even play Tyus Jones at this point? He's likely not back next year. It's been widely reported that this is a guy that wants to be a starting point guard in the NBA. And I don't know, the amount of teams that would even give him a shot to compete for a starting job, you can definitely count on one hand. So if you're him, if you can get a reasonable salary, a slight increase to come back here and have a starting spot, and have this high usage and maybe position yourself to be traded to another team and have a bigger role. Cool. I mean,
say for instance, they can't trade him. Say for instance, they cannot trade him this year. Mm-hmm. Have him for next year. Wouldn't he still be a great asset to the team? A good asset?
It doesn't hurt anything to me to try it. And people have written that off as like, oh, you're not going to get him back here on a friendly deal. We'll have to overpay to keep him. I'm like, well, they just did it with Kuzma. This front office has shown they're really adept at signing guys to good contracts that are team-friendly, long-term, and they're not going to like mortgage their future to do it. So I would trust them to pull off this kind of thing more than I would probably trust them to do a lot of other stuff at this point because we've now seen them do it at least once. So I don't know. Give it a shot. Like if you get the 2 second-round picks, they just weren't going to do anything for us. So maybe you can get a future first for him at some point in a better draft down the road. Like, cool. Somebody has got to play point guard minutes for this team. Like, it can't be like you need at least a solid enough guy that's not going to fuck shit up for the young guys. So it's just put a solid, competent guy on a decent-ish contract around them. And I think that makes sense to me. All right. So just thought this was interesting from Wizards Muse on Twitter. Under the Winger Dawkins front office, they have moved out Bradley Beal, Daniel Gafford, Kristaps Porzingis, essentially Jarris Walker, our boy Jordan Goodwin, Isaiah Todd, and Monte Morris, and brought in Jordan Poole, Bilal Coulibaly, Tyus Jones, Marvin Bagley, Landry Shamet, Richaun Holmes, Isaiah Livers, Patrick Baldwin Jr., a first-round pick, a protected first-round pick, 4 first-round pick swaps, 9 second-round picks, and cash considering, basically getting long-term cap space. I don't know. Is that a win for the front office so far?
Can't really say.
Mm-hmm. Too early
because
still.
The front office has changed. Is this...
All those moves happened under this group of guys.
All these moves happened under this group.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
It's tough.
It is tough. It's a tough decision. If you look at it now,
mm-hmm.
It may be concerning.
Yeah.
But we don't know the full picture.
Yeah.
Right? It may be concerning because, those are good. Those are a lot of quality players that went away.
Yep.
You can't deny that.
Mm-hmm.
But also, a lot of those players wasn't, was kind of past their peak of their career too.
Yeah, you had to make a move probably.
So now I think we're trying to go to youth. We're trying to get some youth, and we're trying to get some solid players.
Yep.
Right. I feel like that's the game plan. So we have to see this picture, finish. We got to see everything play out right now. It's still it's still painting the picture.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure. Good comment from Anthony W in the chat here. He said, "Guess we'll have to wait and see, but I think Tyus would prefer not to be on a 9-40 team." Jahadi, you can probably speak to this better than I can. Some guys do not give a shit about what their NBA team record is if it's at the expense of, I can be the man, I can be the starting point guard, I can play 30 minutes a night and average 18 points. That means more to me than being the third guard off the bench in Minnesota and playing 16 minutes a night on a team that might make it to the Western Conference Finals or whatever.
The NBA is about sustaining.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everybody hopes to be on a playoff team. Everybody hopes to be on a championship team, a winning team. But everybody wants job security, right? Mm-hmm. Tyus is a type of player where, he would hope to be on a winning team, but he's not one of those type of players who can demand that or move the needle that much to change the life of if a team is a winning team or not.
Yeah.
So he's the type of player that's going to have to say, "Hey, I just got to remain in the league and keep my numbers up, keep my production good, and have job security."
Mm-hmm. This doesn't preclude him from getting traded to a contender in a year and a half anyway. Like, say he signs a 3-year deal, then the Lakers could go get him next year or something if they want to. So it's,
and who knows? He might wind up on a Celtics, but
sure,
who knows? It's how it moves. But with him, it's like, look, if I job security means more time on the court.
Yeah.
So that may not be on one of these great looking, prosperous dynasties. It may be on a team with a record like the Wizards right now.
Mm-hmm. Apologies if I'm getting this wrong. It's hard to read on the YouTube chat feed here, but from King Me, I think, says, "Do you think the front office considers Kuzma a cornerstone, or they just didn't get the offers they wanted?" I don't know. We've heard some reporting directly that they re-signed him with the opportunity to trade him down the road for as much as they could get for him. So I don't think they see him. I would say the answer is kind of in the middle. Like, I don't think they see him as a cornerstone. I think they see him as a solid enough piece for the now term kind of stuff. And they probably just didn't see enough value in return to move him that they couldn't get the same amount next year, if not more.
I think they see him as a piece, right? They can, not the main piece.
Sure.
I think they need a star to go along with Kuzma.
Yeah, he can't be the guy for you, for sure.
Right, and Kuzma is the second fiddle, and they need a top guy.
I would even maybe argue the third fiddle, to be honest with you, if you're actually trying to win something.
Now it's hard to get 3 players on one team.
Yeah, sure.
Now it's been a 1-2 punch. You don't get 1-2-3s much.
Yeah.
Right. So so I'm going off of off of 1-2. Mm-hmm. Whatever they're looking for, Kuzma most likely has to be that 2. If him being the 1, still we'd probably be in the same predicament we're in now.
Sure. Yeah, I'm with you here. So I'm scrolling back through the chat here a little bit. So I'm doing this in real time. Apologies, everybody. But basically, there's some back and forth about this thing that Bill Simmons reported, essentially that Deni Avdija would prefer to play for a better team and is unhappy here in Washington, and that a trade request could happen in the near future. And then there's a lot of back and forth about that. And I'm always a little gun shy about saying anything about Deni because I don't know, somebody's going to tell me to drive off a cliff if I say the wrong thing. So I'm going to tread very lightly with this one just because, the dude's been competitive, right? He's a fiery player. I'm sure he doesn't love the idea of being on a trash team, but I think he likes the opportunity to grow and stretch his wings and turn into the player we've seen. And he's probably already considerably outperformed the contract that they're giving him. So, if you're going to be kind of an underpaid guy relative to your production, you'd probably rather do that for a good team. So I could see him not being with the Wizards long term, but also, they've given him sort of a lot of cachet within the organization. Like not every player gets design your own hat night and all this kind of stuff. Not that means a ton, but they've shown him respect. He's the longest tenured wizard here. Like he seems to have liked it in DC. The international guys seem to like the DC area more than some of the the Americans do. So I can't imagine he's in like a real hurry to get out of here or anything like that. But I'm sure the guy wants to win too. Like that's the one thing I take away from Deni in all these games is even when he's had a couple outbursts, it's not just because he's some big a-hole. It's because he's competitive and you can kind of see that from the way he plays most nights.
Yeah, I think Deni definitely just a competitive player, right? And his game is a game that offers itself to those top winning teams.
Yeah, he would fit in great on the Lakers or somebody.
Yeah, exactly. It's no team that he wouldn't fit in great with because his style, right? He's one of those guys who, without a play, can still get you. We can do his thing, shoot from the outside, slash it, very fast, get to the basket, plays hard, plays with passion.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think if the Wizards' record this year would bother any player on that team, number one, it would be Deni.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Right. And his growth and him expanding his game and getting better every year. Yeah, it's great. Right. But also Deni's one of those guys who that same passion, he wants to win.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm with you. I don't profess to be the most locked in or plugged in guy or anything like that, but every once in a while I do hear some interesting little tidbits from people. And I think there was a little bit of that out there in the ether last year, maybe that Deni wasn't sort of the most happy with the situation and his role at certain times. And I never seemed like he particularly clicked with Wes Unseld Jr., who is now not here. So I don't know if whatever Bill Simmons or whoever else is reporting it is basing this on earlier in the season when he was still playing for Wes. I don't know if anything under Brian Keefe changes that. I haven't heard anything related to that to speak confidently on it. So anything else would be pure speculation. But, we'll see what the deal is for him long term.
Well, I don't know the inside track either, but one thing for sure is Deni plays hard.
Yeah.
Deni plays hard. Anybody who plays that hard
gives a shit.
Gives a shit.
Yeah.
They're playing with passion. They're adding passion to their game. So just in that case, and he's consistent. And Deni's a very mental player. Remember when he would go up and down?
Yep.
Right? So things affect him and can affect him and can affect him.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just not all game for game. I want to put the best version of me on the court. So if he wants to put the best version of himself on the court, he wants to give the best version to himself to a good team.
I've got to give my haters that say I'm a Deni hater something to take from this episode and hate on. So I'm going to just make my one criticism of him lately. Please just stop complaining so effing much. The guy pouts about every single call or no call as much as any star player in the league. Just chill the F out and play, dude. Just please. You're not helping yourself. Like, we should know that by now. That does not endear you to referees. Maybe you would get better treatment if you weren't trying to demonstratively show them up every time you bear hug Kawhi Leonard and then complain about it. Just a thought.
The man cares, man.
I know.
The man cares.
This is always my all-time favorite go back from your college coach, but you would rather calm down a fool than try to raise a corpse. I fully, totally believe that, but just calm it down just a little tiny bit for me. Speaking of a corpse, that's my segue of all segues here. Jordan Poole against the Cavaliers the other night. I'm sorry. It was rough, man. 0 points, 0 for 5. Over 4 from 3. I may have turned Jahadi into a corpse here. For anyone not watching this in the chat. How does a guy like that go over in 24 minutes before fouling out of a game, man? What has happened to this dude? It's not the same guy we saw in Golden State. It just isn't.
And the outside noises are getting to him.
Yeah.
And it's starting to really affect him. But, you asked for it. This is what you asked for. Yeah. This is what you worked for, right? Now, this is what you said. You said, hey, this is my team. I sent you the clip. Hey, they were on him, and he was like, man, told dude, be quiet. This is my team. Yeah? Well,
we'll see.
Don't always think you're the king, because like I told you, like, the king don't crown himself.
Yep.
The people crown the king.
Yep.
Right? Like, you worked yourself in a position to get this opportunity, this contract. That doesn't automatically make you the king.
Right.
The king is earned. Right? Now you're auditioning to earn the crown. And it seems like the pressure of him trying to earn that crown and the feedback of his performances is getting to him. But it's not your team then.
No, you're not that guy yet. You're not the guy that you thought you were.
Yeah. Heavy is the head.
Yeah, it's true. My guy Ben says in the chat, if Keefe is going to demonstrate his ability to be a head coach, it would start by benching Poole and letting him regain confidence as a sixth man. Ben, we talked about this right after that move. I'm all in favor of the NBA equivalent of a landmark firing, like making a case with somebody of just like, you're the example of what we won't tolerate anymore. But I think that ship has probably sailed already. We've seen enough just listless nights from people where they aren't held accountable already under the new coaching regime. I haven't seen much of a change personally. So I think
I don't know if that's
you were out on this idea. I forwarded this to you, and you did not take this well when I said it the first time either, or you did not like this idea well when I said it the first time.
Nah, it's like twisting a knife. You might lose him.
Yeah, completely. Right.
Yeah, you're gonna lose him. He's not mature enough to handle that.
Right.
And you
more
might
flies with honey than kind of thing.
Yeah, and then that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money coming in at a six man.
Right.
But if you're a GM and you're owner, you see like, oh, they're not rocking with this guy.
Yeah.
They're not rocking with this guy. So, I gotta admit to my mistake. Now, Poole can play.
Yeah, we've seen enough of it. I mean,
right? His situation is when he plays, it becomes sometimes too selfish, and it actually hurts the team rather than helps the team. Right? Then now he's hearing it. Every player after a while hear all the outside noises. It comes through. They say they don't, but it infiltrates sometimes. It filters its way through somehow, right? Just like water.
Sure.
And now I think it's become very effective.
Yeah, it's gotten to him, right? The man's cracked. We need a sports psychologist. We need something. Yeah. Ben's point here, $30 million is also a lot for a guy who can't score a single point in half an hour. I get it. I agree with it. I do think that this is like
he can score. He's completely in his own head.
Yeah. I think this is the guy that needs coddle. Like, he needs kid gloves. Like, this is the guy that you got to put an arm around and just like, hey man, we got to work on your shots, but the game's there. The tough love kind of thing doesn't seem. He got tough loved last year on his team, and that seemed like it mentally broke him more than anything. So, yeah, I don't know. I got one for you here that I thought was an interesting story. Former Wizards interim head coach Eddie Tapscott told a story on the DC Coaches podcast, which, if you like local college basketball, it's with him, Gary Williams, Gordon Austin, that played at American, Chris Naki, that coached at American. Really interesting. But told a story about, I think while he was working for the Knicks, the players had basically tuned out Don Nelson as head coach, even though they had a winning record. And Pat Riley basically came in and was like, hey man, we aren't doing this shit anymore. He's not getting fired, so you all need to figure out a way. And we're just not doing that. So sometimes the owner has to get involved. The president's got to get involved. And if you think your players are not rocking with a coach, got to have that coach's back and just say, like, figure this shit out or you're going out the door. Actually, maybe that Pat Riley part was when he was in Miami already. But anyway, came downstairs and just said, like, the inmates will not run the asylum here. Figure it out or we ship you out. And apparently that turned stuff around. But at the Don Nelson one, they also were not effing with him, and they had to bring in, Jeff Van Gundy despite a winning record. So I don't know. There's probably two examples I've butchered into one, but I'm wondering, like, does a Ted coming down into the locker room and being like, "Hey, cut this shit out. Brian Keefe's your coach. Like, we got to dig in here." Like, does that help?
I don't
anything?
think it's time. Are you talking about for Jordan Poole? I don't think it's time for that to happen yet.
Them in general.
You don't want that to happen too early.
Okay.
It is when the players start to tune and overhear the coach, and they say, "No, it's not either you or the coach. It's you."
Yeah.
He's gonna stay. So the coach is not leaving. And if anybody's giving this coach a hard time, they're the ones who leaving is going to be the cancer of this team.
Right.
That changes things. That switches dynamic completely.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's on us now, because players always feel like they can get rid of the coach.
Yeah, exactly. Now I know you can't. Uh-oh.
Right. So when somebody say, "Nah, this coach will get rid of you."
Mm-hmm.
He's not going nowhere. That's not happening. So if you're trying to affect that, then you're the problem and you're out of here.
Sure.
All of a sudden, every word that coaches say again rings in your ears. You back on track. You bouncing you tap dancing to every beat.
Mm-hmm. I'm not suggesting that they don't rock with Brian Keefe or that Poole specifically doesn't. I don't know. I haven't seen like this sustained long-term improvement in terms of effort, but enough to think that they've like magically are going to win one for Coach Keefe, long-term here. But I think that's an interesting example for the future. And I had never really heard that about, like, sometimes the owner needs to walk downstairs and make himself heard. And I don't know. Did Abe ever come down and say anything to you guys on that kind of stuff?
He come down and just, he would bring his friends down when we won and,
hang out a little bit.
Walk everybody and shake everybody's hand. Sure. Probably tap you on the head too long. And I used to see a lot of Abe and MJ situations. It's just, man, don't let him touch your head. Don't let him tap you on your head like a dog.
Oh my God.
There was a lot of situations going on with that, but
that's too funny.
Nah, he would bring his friends down, especially with a win. He's happy. So he should get to show out with his friends that's in town for a day and bring him in the locker room. But that's all he did.
Yeah, he didn't seem like the lay down the law kind of guy.
Nah, he wasn't. He barely knew he was around.
Right. Just last thing here before we get out of here. We've talked a little bit about, all right, the Wizards probably need a big, and obviously this is not the time in the rebuild to draft for need, but I don't know, at some point you probably have minutes to give a young center to develop here. So it makes some sense to me. Just running through the guys kind of projected in the first-ish round that are bigs, essentially. You've got Alex Sarr, French big man for Perth Wildcats in the NBL. Let's see, Kyle Filipowski from Duke, Donovan Clingan from UConn, Yves Missy from Baylor, Khalil Ware from Indiana, Zach Edey from Purdue. Maybe you could call Oso Ighodaro from Marquette a small ball 5 in the NBA, potentially. Just a lot of those kinds of names. There aren't really a ton of traditional bigs available here. And I think this goes back to your point where it's kind of hard to find solid bigs sometimes, but Alex Sarr is projected to be the top pick in the draft. The Wizards are a strong candidate to get the top pick in the draft. Seems like a defensive center who can cover a lot of ground and clean up a lot of stuff. Would be interesting. Again, Ben, good comment in the chat here. Serbian kid at Kentucky. That's Zvonimir Avicevic. He came out of the gates, hit a bunch of threes. I think he's averaging 1.3 points per game over the last 10 games and looks totally lost on the court since then. So probably not the guy, but maybe his teammate Aaron Bradshaw. I don't know. Do you take a flyer on a guy like that in the second round? Certainly all options and things they should look into. But we can do a podcast on bigs potentially in the draft if that's something people are interested in. But either way, I would like to see a long-term young rotation piece. That's all I'm looking for, Jahadi. Like a young big that maybe has some potential.
Most bigs that are in college that's good won't be in the NBA.
Yeah, just doesn't exist for them to make that
Don't
transition.
exist. I mean, the type of bigs that colleges go for now,
right?
Don't make NBA players.
Yep.
because it's now you have to be able to go out 1 through 5, and you have to be able to stretch the floor.
Yep.
So if you and so
the Drew Timmy effect.
If you can't shoot the ball, you better be agile and ready to move and jumping over the rim.
Yep.
You can't be like the big stiff boys, and like right. Those guys that college say, oh, he's tall, he's big and strong. They're not NBA players anymore. They all got to have to go overseas. Think about the last few bigs that were pretty good. Purdue, Gonzaga, Drew Timmy.
Yeah, Timmy's having some moments in the G League, but that's, he's in the G League.
It's going to be tough for him to be a good NBA player.
I agree. Yeah.
Right? So that's what I'm saying. When you get those rare bigs, you gotta rock with them.
Yep. Probably not a traditional 5 in the NBA, but I really like Trevin Brazil from Arkansas. Just athletic as shit, bouncy, puts the ball on the floor a little bit. I think he can shoot it. Had kind of a weird year this year coming back from the knee injury, but he could be like maybe a small ball 5 for a playoff run. And I don't know, he'd be an instant infusion of athleticism on a team that I think could, like, that's the other thing with Gafford is you just got less athletic. So this is probably one of the least athletic teams in the league.
And now you can't protect the basket.
Yeah. So finding some dudes that could at least like weak side shot block, I think would not be a bad idea long term. All right, partner. I think that's all I got here. We hit this one pretty good. It seems like a quiet deadline. If there are buyouts, we'll throw something out here later just to give people some updates. But I think we hit the one trade as hard as we could hit it.
Yeah, we did.
We did. Cool, man. Well, we'll keep everybody going and posting and all that kind of stuff with content. The interns have started here at Believe in Wizards, so you'll be seeing more clips and stuff like that pop up here, everybody. So let us know what other kind of content you want. We're going to get them to start covering the Capital City Go-Go a little bit for us here. So we'll start to have some more updates on that. We'll do Johnny Davis watch every week if he continues to play well in the G League. He had 7 steals the other night, looked really good. So, we'll see what the deal is there. Hopefully we can keep that moving. Again, hit that like button for us, rate, review, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. We were brought to you by betonline.ag, and we will catch y'all next time.